A good performing 4K action camera on a budget. This immediately attracts our attention, but is this the right one? Akaso Brave 4 Pro in the spotlight today. Let's inspect. Hey, welcome back. Really nice to see you. I'm Michael, and what we do here is to inspect fresh and cool tech. Today we're going to talk about action cameras, and truth is that in the past months there haven't been too many reviews on the channel about good, cheap action cameras because, unfortunately, in the past months we don't have that many of them around. And I have the feeling that this gap between the premium brands, and here think about DJI, GoPro, Insta360 and the cheaper brands, it's becoming bigger because there's lack of innovation and competition in the lower end segment. But we'll see whether that's gonna change this year. The new model comes from Akaso, a company known for offering really great ratio about features at the price offered, but there have been some really weird things going on with Akaso throughout the past year. Their Facebook page suddenly disappeared and their website has seen some quite weird restructurings, but anyhow, I'm not really sure what's going on. At least they're still active on Amazon, and this is their latest model, which is called the Brave 4 Pro. Quite interesting, cheaply made and very promising model with a dual screen setup, so let's find out whether it's any good. This here costs less than $120. Given the fact that electronics pricing is skyrocketing, it's great to see a 4K capable device for a little more than $100. And while price sounds quite attractive, I did have a bunch of quality concerns right from the start. At this modest budget, you can of course buy quite many different action cameras. None of them are gonna be perfect, but through the years we've seen some remarkable achievements by action cams, some of which managed to challenge even the GoPro series. Akaso are, as usual, providing very positive experience while taking the box apart and checking what is inside. The camera arrives mounted in its waterproof case. This is great for scuba divers, can withstand depths of up to 30 meters. Never tested it myself, but it should be good enough. I'm gonna take the camera out, put it on the side for a moment and take a look at the accessories. You've got options to mount to a bike, a helmet and many other surfaces. Most of them are cheaply made, probably you're going to rarely use them, if at all, but the big bonus is the availability of a second battery. In that sense, good news, the battery is replaceable and having a spare one is always a good thing. As for the camera itself, build quality is apparently not great. Nice grey color is Akaso's choice for this model, feels like a very thin layer of plastic. I didn't manage to scratch it while testing, but never had the feeling that I'm holding something with a solid construction. Good news, there's the front screen. I can, however, criticize the choice of the material for the layer covering it because it's not glass and any serious press is gonna result into breaking it. So, to be on the safe side, if you go biking or any other sport that could be potentially dangerous, better keep it inside the waterproof case. If so far you've had the feeling that you've seen this design before, then you're totally right. It shares almost the same housing and dimensions as the SJ4000 by SJCam from close to 7 years ago. Sad truth is that, well, clearly the older SJ4000's build quality seems to be a lot better. Now, let us talk about the main technical specifications. If you like geeky stuff, definitely a moment for you to assess the qualities. 4K 30 frames per second maximum recording resolution, image sensor by Sony, a rather basic chipset, field of view is advertised as 170 degree, there's a 2-inch main touchscreen and front reference LCD, 1350 mAh battery capacity, micro SD slot for cards up to 128 gigs, Wi-Fi built in, and support for external microphone. The overall specs pack inside is really good for the budget, or at least sounds like it. We shouldn't expect GoPro-like performance because right now when I'm holding both of them, the GoPro is a lot heavier because it has a lot better hardware on the inside. But in here, Akaso promise some very nicely sounding specs, really large battery, and just a spoiler, the battery life was really exceptional. They also offer Electronic Image Stabilization 2.0 advertises EIS 2.0, so it's really interesting whether that holds up to the expectations, but first let's check about the menus. The display performance is actually good. Since a few generations, Akaso have started to better take advantage of swiping actions, perhaps inspired by the good user experience brought by GoPro and DJI action cameras. So if you swipe left or right, you can switch between the various shooting modes. However, I found no way to customize the amount of this. Sometimes you need to swipe a few times until you pass the sections that you don't really use. The menus seem to be well built. There are configuration options for some of the parameters, however this all comes nowhere near to a professional grade control. For example, there are a few screen resolutions which you can choose from, with 4K at 30 frames per second being the highest option. What I find a bit frustrating is the fact that Akaso, yet again, haven't added 25 or 24 frames per second option. There is no choice between NTSC and PAL, which is quite disappointing given the fact that this camera is available for the US-based, but also for the EU-based customers. Perhaps a budget-driven decision. Good news is that there is 120 FPS option in 1080p for slow motion. Quality is however hindered by the small image sensor and the not too capable processor. From the pro-oriented features, there's white balance control, ISO and sharpness adjustments. Not much more than that, lack of shutter speed control or aperture and similar. As usual for action cameras, we have the typical infinity focus. I also have remarks about the field of view being advertised as a 170-degree thing. You can notice that the Hero 10, which has close to 132 degrees, is in fact a lot wider than the Akaso Brave 4 Pro, meaning that this statement is quite misleading. Some good news is the fact that you can count on a smartphone app. The bad news, that it is not impressive at all and mostly good for transferring the video or photo files. Additional features are either not present or simply not that useful. Now, footage and performance. Happy to reach this section, but probably you won't be too happy to hear what's coming next. 4K 30 frames per second on a bright sunny day is rather okay. Not impressive, not very good, just somewhere between fine and acceptable. If you want to buy this camera so that it is a cheap way to shoot something cool in a water park during the summer and have the waterproof protection via the case, this is a good idea. But using it as a primary action camera, I feel like Akaso Brave 4 Pro simply doesn't deliver the necessary quality and is one more nail in the coffin of cheap action cameras. Because, as you may agree, there's notable amount of noise even in daylight. Really cool to see Akaso working on fixing the ultra-wide-angle lens distortions, but the details are not there and the overall image looks like it's being shot with a 10-year-old camcorder. Stabilization is the other aspect which is not quite right. Being advertised as EIS 2.0 in 2022, it's supposed to deliver better results. Even attached to the windshield, where the mount is static, the EIS makes the footage look shakier than a dash camera, meaning that the adjustment of the gyro data is not at all optimal. Hopefully a firmware update could improve this, but I have serious doubts Akaso would release such an update at all. Low light and nighttime footage look horrendous, despite my attempts to play around with the settings. And even time-lapse, where the camera can switch to lower shutter speeds, is not making me happy with all this noise which is audible in the area of the trees. So, combining the facts that we stumbled across throughout this episode and listing the negatives, I would say unimpressive build quality, unimpressive image stabilization, okay smartphone app, and image quality which is sometimes mediocre, sometimes you can say not good at all, and a few other components which make it impossible for me to recommend to you buying the Akaso Brave 4 Pro. Not that it's bad, it's just that for the budget, if you don't really need a front display, I'm pretty sure that you can find better deals with a lot better performance. And you know what? The sad fact is that older models like the V50 Pro, again by Akaso, or V50X, which I have for such a long time, probably they are a lot better choice if you're seeking for more optimal image stabilization and overall image quality. Thing is that I'm not really sure that if you buy the V50X now, it's gonna have the same good hardware as it used to have 2-3 years ago. So kind of a mess due to this shortage of chips, and maybe you can let me know what you think about all of that and whether you can find some good positive sides of the Akaso Brave 4 Pro. Please comment below. And thank you very much for watching this episode till the end. Hopefully you learned something new and it has been entertaining to explore a new, fresh, interesting device. As usual, for follow-up questions, ideas, things to say, remarks, please comment down below. I'm Michael. Would be glad to see you in the next episode. Have a great day. Bye.